I'll always remember the first watch my parents ever gave me when I turned 8 years old. It was a simple analog watch. No bells and whistles, Bluetooth features, power plugs, and other smart options. It was just simple and reliable, and ultimately taught me how to tell time. And since then, I've always had to have a watch on my wrist. And through the years, I've had my fair share of digital watches, smart watches, and they all have their place. But I'm always pulled back to that original kind of analog field watch style for its simplicity and classic design. And what I want to do in this video is share my love for modern field watches with you by unpacking two variants from their watches. One being a solar powered C5 tactical field watch, and one being an automatic powered A5 tactical field watch. And we'll be comparing the strengths and weaknesses of these two power sources, along with highlighting features to be aware of that maybe help with waterproof capability or maybe are hindrances, as well as even taking a knife blade to the face of a few different watches to see how they stack up, to ultimately help you better know what to look for when you're considering field watches, regardless if you land on a Vaer watch or this just helps jumpstart your interest in the idea of a timepiece on your wrist. Now, I appreciate Vaer watches hooking me up with these samples. They're a regular sponsor here at the channel so that I can share not only my love of watches with you, but also educate and inform. And so we're gonna have some fun today talking about some timepieces. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Aaron. This is Gideonstactical. Let's dive in. Now, to kick things off, we got to tell the difference between these two watches because they both have blackout faces and then they have PVD black matte coating on the 316 stainless steel bodies. That helps not only with rust resistance, durability with that stainless steel housing of the frame, but then on top of that, the US assembly, all those things. How do we know which is which? Well, the A5 automatic is going to have the leather tan band, and for extra help, the automatic says automatic on the face. And then the C5 Solar will have the rubberized blackout band. Now, where's one of the first places where we would potentially see wear on one of our watches? Well, for me, it's always been the face. You know, it gets scuffed up, scratched up over time, and then it becomes more and more difficult to see the time, doesn't look as well maintained, and eventually I just replaced the watch. Well, that is where the sapphire crystal over the face comes into play. Sapphire crystal is the second hardest natural material next to diamonds, and therefore one of the most scratch resistant materials on the planet. And just to prove that, I took one of my cheaper analog watches that I love, they definitely have their place, and just dragged the tip of my knife across there, didn't even press, and immediately deep gouge into that polymer cover, screen, whatever it is, and just a couple of those, the watch is now basically useless. Do the exact same maneuver on one of these sapphire crystals, and it just shrugs it right off. And the Solar especially, I have had now, and probably wear about 70% of the time for the last 6 months. Looks like the day I got it. So how do you tell the time on a field watch in the dark? Most field watches do not have a button that, you know, lights up the face. Instead, they have fluorescent paint that are painted onto the hands and onto the numbers, and therefore you can, you know, it absorbs natural light and then you can see it for a certain amount of time and it fades over time. So the standard time frame is usually about 4 to 6 hours. Great time frame would be 8 to 10 hours is kind of what you need to be kind of aware of. Now, what you should be looking for as like a good standard that it should last about, you know, 7 to 8 hours would be C3 Superluminova type of fluorescent paint and above, and that is exactly what these Vaer watches use. And so what I have personally found is that if I go to bed at like 10:30 and then I wake up say at 5:30, it's starting to fade, but I can easily, you know, takes a second, but tell what time it is. So it's holding that lume for, I would argue, usually around 7 hours easily. And when you're looking at any field watch, be looking for that C3 rating and Superluminova or above. We'll circle back really quick here just to that US assembly, which is pretty awesome. Now, Vaer Watches is based in the United States, in Los Angeles, founded by two friends who wanted to build something here in America and also be able to have a really cool timepiece that they could go surfing with and do all their outdoor activities with. And so Bear Watches was born. Now, if you go down the rabbit hole of watch manufacturing, you find out pretty quick it's really tough to be able to source and build watches here in America. We've just offshored so much of that skill set and technology. And so what Bear Watches has done is tried to source as many items in the watches as they can from the United States. And then many of their watches, including these two we're talking about today, are assembled and built right here in the United States. And what really put Bear Watches on the radar for me was their commitment to revitalizing the American watch industry and really pouring resources into that so that watches can be assembled here. They are leading the way in that category currently and have a desire to have that grow even more. That's pretty cool that these are assembled and built in America and kind of have a unique designation that you don't usually find on this level of field watches. Now, with that said, the Automatic is a Japanese-made Miyota movement, which is kind of like the Toyota of movements. The design is very well built, it's reliable, the engineering is good behind it, and it is going to be a little more durable than, say, other automatic movements, which is kind of the whole vibe with this brand, so that you don't have to baby this Automatic, because it is just a bunch of moving parts. There's no battery, there's no power source outside of just the movement winding the watch, which is super cool. If you like to see how things work, you like not having to use, some sort of charging port and, all that stuff, this is ultra cool through that window to see the little mechanisms, to see the weight that winds it, and that's what powers it. I mean, it's just my movement, moving my wrist around, doing that type of thing. That is going to power this Automatic watch. And then finally, of course, the smooth movement of the second hand on an Automatic sets it apart from other power sources and is this really cool technical kind of feature. And if you are into watches, you'll know right away, oh, that's an Automatic over other styles. Now, on the flip side, the Solar uses a Japanese-made Epson power source, and it absorbs light, turns it into electric energy, and stores it into a rechargeable cell. And what that means is that with 6 hours of direct light, it can house up to 6 months of power, really allowing itself to be, eventually you'll have to replace that battery, but pretty minimal maintenance and very simplistic and kind of one and done in the power source. Now, it's not going to be as cool, it's not going to be as mechanical and kind of this tactile feel, but it's very simplistic and absolutely is kind of set and forget power sourcing. And that brings us back to the one thing you need to understand about all automatics that I didn't quite understand until I got my very first one, is that when you are moving, that is, winding and keeping some power onto the reserves of your automatic watch. But if you take your watch off and don't move it for, Bear states on theirs about 42 hours, which is pretty standard. Let's just say 2 days, just to make it easy. 2 days, if you don't use it and move the mechanism for 2 days, the watch will stop running. And then you have to shake it, get it moving again, and then reset the time. And so for some, you'll absolutely love that kind of like tactile reset, old school. Think of 1800s when you had to actually have a key to like wind your watch every day, your pocket watch. So on one level, that's really cool. But on another level, if you like to change out your watches a lot and you have a big collection, you're going to have to be resetting the watch pretty frequently. And that may, for some people, kind of be in a nuisance. And you're just like, I'd rather just have something that is solar powered, where it's going to, for 6 months at least, going to have the power that I need to just keep the time running. So leave a comment below on what you guys think about that. What type of personality are you? The more mechanical, like to make sure it's running and you don't mind resetting, or the solar power kind of set and forget? Now let's talk about the difference between push-pull crowns and screw-down crowns, and the potential reliability that that may give you in water resistance or waterproof capability, because there's a big difference. Now, when it comes to more usually inexpensive watches, but I've seen them on like $750 automatics, the push-pull method is where you literally just pull the pin and the crown out like that, and then you adjust the time and date, and then you just push it back in and starts activating the watch. The downside to that is the convenience level is nice, but the downside is that you could get accidental popping out, and then that opens the entire mechanism potentially to water, and then you have flooded your expensive timepiece that you have invested in. On the flip side, Vaer has opted for the more reliable screw down crown method. So you have to screw this down multiple times to seat it and basically like lock it into place, to where then you have to back it off and twist it multiple times before you can pull it open and then adjust the time, meaning the likelihood of accidental water, compromising is almost completely mitigated, and gives you an extra level of peace of mind that these are going to hold on to their water resistant capability. And these are waterproof rated down to 10 atmospheres, which is a fancy way of saying 100 meters, 100 meters, fancy way of saying that. 100 meters, which is super nice. And you always want to protect your investment, so always check what type of warranty and guarantees your field watch is offering. Vaer offers a waterproof guarantee and a 2-year warranty. Now, not all analog watches are going to have a date window telling you the day of the month. Thankfully, both of these models do, but there is a difference, and one is definitely easier to read than the other. Now, what's interesting is that on the A5 automatic, the window is very easy to register what the date is. You can just look at it, it almost jumps out at you, and you can easily see it's not an issue. On the flip side, the solar, and it must be mechanical or something, because the windows are the same, the numbers are the same, but it's recessed in further, so it's deeper into the housing. And because of that, depending on the date, it can be kind of tough to know what it is. You kind of have to angle it a certain way. 1s and 7s sometimes look similar, and there are a few numbers that's a little tricky, and it just takes a little bit of effort. Whereas I can just glance at the automatic and know what the date is. I kind of sometimes have to fiddle around, or okay, that's what it is with the solar. Is that a deal breaker? No, but it's something to be aware of when you're looking at field watches, and a difference between the automatic and the solar on these Vaer. Now, the band or strap on your field watch can really make or break the style and just kind of the vibe of the watch overall. But what's unique to Vaer is that not only with both of these models, you get 2 bands with the watch, but they offer something kind of unique in that they have a quick release system. Now, what that means is, and I was a little on the fence when I first saw it and got my first Vaer watch ever, I was like, I don't know if this is really like that durable. But having had the solar now for over 6 months, tug, pull, done all types of activities with it, I've never once had one pop out on me. They seem to be very well built and durable from my experience. And what's unique is that, like, in the morning, I can have like the rubberized water resistant one for a hike, or if I'm doing some sort of sports activity where I'm gonna be sweating a bunch, and then I can come home, and if I have like a family get together or maybe a dinner out, I can just, with these little tabs, just pull the original band, pops out, and then without any tools I can put in, say, a leather strap, and that changes the entire appearance, the entire vibe of the watch. And really, I can dial it into the different environments and activities that I may be doing. So I can have leather, for that board meeting, and then, I'm meeting up with my kids and wife at the pickleball courts, and I want that polymer back on there, that's gonna not absorb sweat and stuff like that. And yes, pickleball is awesome, especially with your kids, easy to learn. We're getting sucked into the cult. I highly recommend it if you are considering or you're looking for something to do maybe this summer with your kids. It's a great activity, or your significant other. And it uses the common 20mm lug, so if you have a particular favorite type of wristband, then you can just use the standard pins to hold that band into place and customize these watches however you want. Now, we got to talk pricing. What's it going to take to get into these type of watches, and especially American assembled, Japanese movement, like all the things that we've been talking about today.
Well, what's really cool is if you want to just get your feet wet, you can actually start with there's S series of field watches, which uses quartz battery power, and those start under $200. And then if you want to move up to the C5 solar power that we've been talking about, that's going to start at $350. And then if you want to move all the way up to the automatic, then you're going to look at a starting price around $660. And that's just the field watch style. They carry several other styles of watches as well.
In conclusion, I hope that ultimately you guys have been informed, you've had entertainment throughout this, but also maybe learned a few things about watches, and especially field watches, that you didn't know before. And leave a comment on what you think about this concept. You know, I do a lot of blades and a lot of like packs and stuff like that here on the channel, but if you guys like this type of idea and maybe you want to see more watches and see more gear in general, kind of in this area of equipment, leave a comment and maybe I'll diversify a little bit and add this into the rotation of videos we create here on the channel. If you're new, it got rained on, so it's been a long day waiting here. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe, to check out the other video. Appreciate you guys, and until next time, always remember to stay equipped, stay prepared. I'll see you out there.